Hey everybody, Taz from Critical Thinking Anarchist here. If you're like me, you have been a fan of Death Note anime series for a long time, and several years ago, when Netflix announced they were going to do an American version of the movie, I was cautiously optimistic. Holy shit was I let down. Just a little background. Death Note manga has been around since 2003, and in 2006 the first anime episode started dropping. It was an immediate hit, and the fandom has lasted to this day. There have been several video games and 4 Japanese live-action movies and a Japanese live-action miniseries which all met with various forms of success. The Japanese versions of the live-action films followed the manga and anime fairly closely and only changed what needed to be changed, likely for filming purposes. What works in animated form doesn't always work in live-action form, and sometimes things need to be changed simply for practicality purposes. The American version does not follow the original stories at all. It follows the basic concept, which is to say the Death Note notebook and most of the rules, but aside from that, it doesn't follow it in the least. The first time I tried watching this, I stopped after about 40 minutes. Jumped a few times further in the story to see if it got better, realized it didn't, and stopped without even finishing the movie. Now, if you've never followed any of the Japanese versions of this, you'll likely think it's a very good or at least entertaining film. I'll liken it to having read the Harry Potter books and the people who think Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire or Order of the Phoenix movies are good. I'll tell you now, they're terrible. They skip and change so much of the story from the books, they are basically Harry Potter in name only, just like this is Death Note in name only. They'd have been better off completely changing the characters and their names and calling it a whole different story. So, let's jump into this movie and start tearing it apart so we can fix it. They start out in Seattle. Not sure why Seattle, other than that a lot of the movie is filmed in Vancouver, like many movies and shows are these days, and Seattle isn't too far from Vancouver with the scenery similar. So it was probably a setting of convenience more than anything. So they show the skyline and some establishing shots of the area, American Mia, and then we finally get to American version of Light, who is very average looking and apparently kind of a scoundrel already as he sells finished quizzes and homework to people. A far cry from the original character, who is incredibly smart, well-adjusted, very good-looking, and popular, as well as a decent athlete. Apparently Americans don't like those people, so we got the average-looking quasi-nerd instead. And we're barely 30 seconds into this movie, Mia's bored, the audience is bored, the director has already set up more establishing shots in the first not even a minute than most movies get in 2 hours. We get it. The main characters think Seattle sucks. So does everyone else in the world. Move on. And now Mia is smoking while cheerleading in front of everybody. God damn, I hate this movie. I already want to turn this off. I forgot how horrible this movie is. So we get into the wind blows, and the Death Note drops from the sky, it starts raining, everybody runs, a kid is thrown from the building by bullies, as often happens, and Light tries to defend Mia. Light gets knocked out and then found by school administrators who then chastise him for having homework for multiple people. Light brings up the fact that he was punched in the face and the principal, or whomever he is, gives him detention, doesn't worry about fighting on school grounds. Apparently this is how the directors feel school is in America. Light goes to detention, starts reading the Death Note, chaos and overacting ensue, and we meet Ryuk. Ryuk is a death god. The Death Note is his. He explains that he dropped the note here to see what would happen. Ryuk is one of the few bright spots in this movie, voiced by Willem Dafoe, who is almost perfect in his portrayal. So, he convinces Light to use the Death Note to take out one of the bullies who is beating up a girl in the schoolyard. Light writes the name in the book, and an incredible series of events take place in the span of about 8 seconds to kill the kid. Once again, goddamn, do I hate this movie because that's not how the original versions of the story would have gone. But I guess to prove how powerful this notebook is, the writers figured they needed to go to extraordinary lengths or normal people wouldn't believe it was them, merely coincidence or something. The kid dies, Ryuk gives Light a chance to give up the notebook, but Light declines. Next scene! Light and his dad are in their house and it's just the two of them. Apparently you can't have a normal, well-adjusted family. Mom's dead, he's an only child, and it's just him and his dad, and they're fighting about him getting caught selling people's homework, and Light gets all upset because nobody cares he tried to break up a fight. He only did it because of Mia. What's weird is, nobody mentions the death of the kid at school. They continue fighting about the guy who killed his mom and apparently went free. This is where we're supposed to believe Light's moral outrage comes from. Light goes back to his room, starts reading the death note. Ryuk shows up, explains some of the rules, and Light decides to use it to kill the guy who killed his mother. The guy dies through more extraordinary means, and that's the end of the movie, right? Light's fulfilled his moral obligation. All that's left for him to find out is that it happened, and we can end this atrocity. Damn. Still 1 hour, 22 minutes left. Light's dad ends up coming in and telling him about the guy dying, and nothing. Now, Light is at gym, or basketball practice, or something, just reading the death note. Mia sees him and strikes up a conversation about the kid that died the day before, and then the fight, and then it gets creepy and cringe fairly quickly, and they leave to the cafeteria. He tries to show Ryuk, but she can't see him. He then tries to convince her that he killed the kid. She doesn't believe him, so they go back to his house. He brings up live crime scene sites and kills a guy again by the stupidest means possible. I guess this director is making them out to be Bonnie and Clyde? They talk about their pasts. Light brings up some random guy killed his mom. Mia says we can change the world, and suddenly they're a couple. Then there's a short montage of them escalating their killings and sexcapades, and we're just going to jump over a bunch of pointless crap. They come up with the name Kira as a terrible nod to the source material. In the original version, Light ends up being called Kira by the public for killing all those terrible people. Here, they come up with it themselves because fuck this movie and more montage bullshit. Enter L, played by Lakeith Stanfield, who must have been a fan of the original manga and series because he gets the character down pretty well. The quirky mannerisms, the stoic speech, and dramatic pauses are spot on. He's about the only thing that was done correctly outside of Ryuk. He's taken notice in the case and heads out to Seattle. In the meantime, Light and his dad are arguing about Light's dad being assigned to the Kira case, and Light doesn't like it. He says it's too dangerous, but we really know that it's because he doesn't want his dad investigating him. This is sort of right from the original, but again, misses the mark completely. L has Detective Turner brought to L's headquarters and explains how he knows Kira is operating in Seattle and the pieces of the puzzle Turner has missed. Bunch of stuff about the possibilities of suspects, including Light, as it has to be someone with access to police files and surveillance, and a tail on Light. Detective Turner gets upset about it, and L claims Light is particularly bright. Aside from selling the homework thing, we have seen no evidence of this. Another short montage. Remember when Green Hornet had 3 in the movie? This one has had 3 in the first 45 minutes. The FBI agents that were trailing Light and Mia all die/kill themselves because Mia used the death note. All of a sudden, Light thinks they're in too deep and doesn't want to do this anymore because Mia threatens to kill his dad. He yells at Mia and she relents. Due to Light's dad going on television to hold another press conference and not dying, L confirms Light is Kira and confronts him. L manipulates Light all over the place and Light gives himself away. Over the course of about a half hour of movie-wise, Light controls Watari until his death, but never learns L's true identity. It makes no sense and adds minimal drama. Mia explains her now diabolical plan to take over as Kira. Fuck this movie! She explains that she took a page from the death note, subdued the FBI agent, used him to write down the rest of his team and kill themselves, and now she's written Light's name in the book and he has to pass it off to her, at which time she'll burn the page, releasing him from being killed by the book. So, a ton of bullshit movie, chase scene, and all it's meaningless. And Light and Mia are on a giant Ferris wheel, and Mia dies because Light wrote her name in the notebook, but Light survives because his exact page was burned. A fourth goddamn montage. This one is filled with a ton of bullshit and is so far beyond reach, not even has this movie not established this well enough to insert it. The anime didn't even go this far. And believe me, the anime went pretty far on how much Death Note could do. But apparently, Light can just control everything with the Death Note. Even random acts because fuck you, you horrible movie. And we know this because he tells his father in the hospital for no reason whatsoever. This ends this godforsaken shithole of a movie, and I will never watch this again. The fix is easy. Kill him. Kill them all. Just watch the Japanese live action, or better yet, the anime is still on Netflix. Go watch it there. However, my job is to say how to fix this movie. So let's just jump into it. First thing, recast Light and Mia. They're okay looking kids, but the point of the original was to have two super attractive people. Give everybody some eye candy. Second thing is, in the original story, Light wasn't just smart or above average. He was brilliant. He literally rivaled L's intelligence. The whole premise behind the story is to watch Sherlock Holmes battle with Moriarty, only we are rooting for Moriarty, if you're rooting for Light. So, have him show he's incredibly intelligent besides simply doing other people's homework. Have him have recruiters from Yale, Harvard, MIT, Brown, whatever, all trying to get him to go to their schools. In the anime, he was shown taking and passing tests and getting accepted to top schools by mail. In a movie, you don't have the same time, so go for something quick. Maybe just letters, but recruiters seem more earnest. Third, again in the source material, Light comes from a well-adjusted family. Mom, dad, sister, and him all happy. Everybody loves Light. He has a very strong moral code, and part of the reasons he hates criminals is watching how hard his dad works. In this version, his dad is a joke even among his own precinct. Why? It serves no purpose. Let his dad be a great detective who is overwhelmed with work, but his family loves him. Let Light be the son who wants to follow in his father's footsteps and starts out that he's honestly trying to make the world a better place. In the Netflix version, we don't see a character development arc. Light is pretty much always a dick. He just gets to become a more powerful dick. The source material has him being corrupted slowly, which ends up making him worse over time. He doesn't want to kill petty criminals who commit nonviolent crimes or people who are innocent but get in the way, but he is forced to make those choices at first, and those choices become easier as he continues on. Fourth, Mia Sutton is also just a typical bad girl who happens to be a cheerleader. I don't even think she's a head cheerleader or anyone with any sort of popularity or power. Misa Amane is a supermodel actress who falls in love with Kira because he kills the person who killed her parents. She meets a second Shinigami, Death God, who falls in love with her and helps her. In this version, apparently Ryuk is the only Death God? Why? Again, what's the point of altering this part of the story? Change it back so that there is reason for them to meet and reason for a future storyline. Have Mia be famous or semi-famous. Maybe she's a model on the rise or a singer on the rise or something where she's still local to Seattle. Yeah, we'll keep the city the same. But she's famous in Seattle. Put it back to them meeting because of their death gods, but also put it towards the end of the movie. Let it build for a possible sequel, and she's killing people differently than he's killing people. It gives L challenges that he didn't have to face before and throws suspicion off Light while also compromising Light's plans. Bring back the heart attacks when Light doesn't specify a method of death and get rid of the super convoluted ways death occurs. A basketball bouncing off the curb, hitting a pedestrian who bumps a cat who gets eaten by an old lady to catch the rat to catch the spider that wriggles and jiggles and tickles inside her who crashes her car into a construction truck whose ladder slides off and decapitates a child, even if it is an asshole child, is just stupid. Also, if you're going to have complicated methods of death, set those up beforehand and show them. The ending is just too far out there without any prior setup, and even with prior setup, most of it is stupid as hell. He could have just as easily met her on the pier, given her the notebook with the stipulation written that when she received it, she would immediately burn his page and kill herself, but at the same time, there was zero reason for that scene as, once again, it has nothing to do with the source material. Mia, aka Misa, is truly in love with Light. She's got her own death god. She doesn't need his notebook, and Light manipulates her constantly, and she obeys. So scratch that scene, scratch the complex deaths that lead to nowhere, and scratch Light killing Watari with a single name. Also, scratch the stupid chase scene through the restaurants. Okay, we've cut the movie down to about 45 minutes. Build it back up with stuff from the source material. Show the battle of wits between L and Light. Show L constantly being a step ahead of Light and taunting him to see if he breaks character. Show Light outmaneuvering himself because he overthinks situations when trying to beat L. All of that will easily add 20 to 30 minutes. There's zero point in having this be a self-contained story, so don't try to make it one. Allow the story to unfold. Stop with all the establishing shots and just allow the movie to be the movie. When pushing back the Mia portion, show scenes of her becoming the second Kira. This gets Light interested and also gives L a reason to bring Light into the process, which is what he does in the source material. Light and L working together while also fighting each other is the whole reason this story exists. Seeing both sides of Sherlock Holmes and his process and Moriarty and his process and the chemistry they have is what made the source material such a huge success. If you need to end the movie with someone being caught, then have Light and his dad volunteer to be jailed while Light gives Mia his notebook to give to someone which releases him from the memories of what he's done. It's not ideal, but it does follow some of the anime to a point. Unfortunately, it's been almost 10 years since I've seen the live-action Japanese version, so I can't remember how their first movie went. But I believe they originally planned it as a two-part where the second movie picked up the second after the first one ended, so they could simply continue the storyline. I'd do the same here, but American audience may not be so inclined on a movie that may not happen. Still, it's smarter to do and forces interest to continue. All in all, it's just easier to read the manga or watch the anime, or if you can find the discs, watch the Japanese versions. But this movie could have and should have been made better. There was no reason for the changes other than the egos of the writers and the directors who thought they could do better, which, by the way, the director, Adam Wingard's most notable contributions to cinema before this were VHS and Blair Witch 2016. And the writers, Charlie and Vlas Parlapanides, had done nothing to earn this. And Jeremy Slater wrote Josh Trank's version of Fantastic Four. If that doesn't tell you everything you need to know about these morons and why they shouldn't have been given jobs, I have nothing more for you. Anyway, thanks for watching. If I've entertained you, hit that like button, subscribe for more content, follow me on social media and Geeks and Gamers, and I will see you later.